I'm going to take you on a little journey of the work that I've done at Ford in immersive realities. I've gotten a lot of inspiration for my talk from some of the things I've heard other people say in the previous panel and some of the discussions. So let's get to it. So the immersive work that we've done at Ford is, in the end, really about high throughput discovery. And so I like to think that immersion is at the heart of how we experience our vehicles, how we share, and what we can discover. And when we put that perspective to what we're doing with immersive reviews, it really adds a lot to how we can understand our vehicles in context. And I'll explain more about what I mean in that. So immersion, because it's this customer-centric approach, we can represent the customer at any point in the process and really do scenario and task-based vehicle development. And what's so great about that is in one environment, we can represent many disciplines and have a really good conversation about our vehicle, where it stands, what the health is. And I have a cheat sheet because I don't have speaker notes, but I wanted to make sure to talk about some of the things that are really important in this environment. If you look at that vehicle, it's got a full engine in it. And Mark talked a lot about bringing data in and having very little that you have to do with it. So that pipeline thing was really critical and key to the success of how we work. And so, but this technology is really social, and it's allowing people to understand and connect over issues or over what the customer could experience or all these other things. But having that social paradigm is really important. And we've made it so it's pervasive. So we have like a way of working that really works how Ford works. And so we can be pervasive and we can add in a lot of data and rich content into our models. We really need it to be accurate, and accurate in multiple ways. Accurate in experience, so that when you're in the immersive environment, you really feel like you're there looking at the vehicle in the conditions that we want to look at it in. The data has to be accurate. We take our data and we bring it into the immersive environment, and we don't decimate our models other than, you know, it's not really a decimation, but it's just a conversion into the format that we use. But we definitely don't strip out nuts and bolts. We're not changing our tolerances so that our data is less precise. We bring it in and we look at it and we evaluate it. And that's really important to have that level of detail so that we can make these evaluations. And then the visual representation, the representation of what you're looking at in the world really needs to be spot on so that it emotes properly and it really connects for what you're doing. And of course, we have to have value in our environments. It has to be responsive. So of course, we don't want to make people sim sick or have any other issues like that. So it really needs to respond both in the function and then the things that we're trying to understand. We integrate our systems across multiple organizations, which is really fantastic so that we can do a lot of good work between organizations. And then being present and having a flexible solution is really important. And then the last thing I'm going to say is we need to have a good connection to the physical world and then have it be like a connection where you are connected to that vehicle when that's warranted, because sometimes that's really, really important. And so now I'm going to take you on a little trip down memory lane here. And so I started out doing VR in the 90s. So who started before the 90s? Not yay! Not very many people, but so this is what it looked like. And then one of the things one of the panelists said was like, make it, you know, pretty easy to get immersed. This is what not to do now, right? But back in the day, it was kind of, you know, a little bit of bleeding edge work. We created an avatar. We got you immersed inside that environment, and we did ergo studies. So that buck, I think, the vehicle thing that I'm in is wood because we're tracking with a magnetic tracking system. And so we couldn't have any metal in the environment, which is a problem for cars that are made out of metal. So that was our solution, and it was actually custom fabbed by our Ford woodshop guys, and I think it's a thing of beauty, and it's too bad we threw it out because I think it should be in a museum somewhere in my house, or it's pretty cool. But from that was a good learning experience, but we needed to add more content. The technology moves on, new capabilities exist, so what can we do to take advantage of what's new and exciting out there? So the next level of goodness was really bringing the physical world and the virtual world together. And besides that physical buck that you saw that was wood, we had this other buck that we could grow and scale. And then it was metal, but now we're using optical tracking at that time. So the convention in automotive especially was really a lot about doing caves, so cave-based tech. We took this other path as well to continue to focus on headset-based approaches because cave is good for some things, but it wasn't satisfying the breadth and depth of the things that we needed to look at. So we kept on with headsets, and I think we're reaping the rewards of that because we have a lot of good use of headset-based tech, way before Oculus came on the front. And then, so after that, we started looking more about how can we add in content. And so the previous attempt and this attempt, what we were doing was establishing the foundation that's so critical to the success of enterprise adoption of VR tech. So we were able to build this system where we could look at our manufacturing process capability, put it back into the design, get immersed in a potential vehicle that we would produce, and we'd say, we have X sigma possibility of producing this vehicle with these tolerances. So sight down the body and tell me what you think of that. Or in this case, look at the IP to door, in the door open and the door closed position, and tell me if we are meeting our tolerances appropriately. So all that manufacturing capability, we could put back into the design and study it. And that was another big leap forward. And doing that really showed what the technology could do and how valuable getting immersed was to communicate hard engineering problems in a way that was really easy to understand. So then we created like a whole big vehicle model, everything together, comprehensive look with a whole engine and a powertrain. And we were pretty good with that, but we were still lacking in visual quality from where we wanted to be. And we had a capability confidence matrix, so we knew what we could do and what we couldn't do, where we could get a good answer and where we couldn't. And there was a lot of times we couldn't get a good answer when it came to like the look of the vehicle. So we upgraded software, hardware, the lab, the room, everything. And ta-da, this was where having executives in, like senior leaders believe in what you're doing results in a big leap forward in what we can do. Because we could have done this maybe a year or two earlier, but usually the technology's ready and the culture needs to catch up. So we did catch up and we put together the system and we had really nice visual quality. And it was really beneficial to finding issues. But even so, it's OpenGL based and baked shadows and all that good stuff. So we created this thing called the FIVE, the Ford Immersive Vehicle Environment. And in that environment, we layered the way we do product development over the top of how we get immersed and how we interact with our models. And by doing that, we're able to provide insight really quickly and then have this globally distributed work team work and then understand issues from everybody's perspective that was in this meeting. And so we put together a collaboration part of that too. And so collaboration basically works where you are immersed in the environment and somebody else is immersed at another location, and you are in the same immersive environment at the same time, talking and sharing and having a discussion about the health of the vehicle or the status or whatever it is. And usually those reviews are in multiple locations, of course, and then with other people all looking at a first-person perspective of whoever is running the meeting who's immersed. So you might be immersed in Palo Alto and then switch to somebody who's in Dearborn and switch to somebody who's in Melbourne and then go back. And so it's really this big team, one person leading, and many people either in the immersive environment or watching that immersion. And just as a side note, when we do these reviews, we have two sets of tracking. We have one tracking that's live for the person who's wearing the headset, and then one tracking which is slowed and smooth. So if you are watching somebody's immersion and they start doing one of these, you're going to see a very nice, steady flow instead of the head bobbing. So we kind of get rid of all of that on purpose so that the people who are watching through somebody else's eyes also have a good experience. And so now I want to take a little turn because part of the work that I have been doing at Ford, I've been focusing on getting immersed and looking at the models. And when we upgraded our lab and had better visual quality, there were still things that were missing. And so I started really looking into the cues that people get in the immersive space and what they mean and how important or unimportant they are. And I noticed that there were inefficiencies in the way we were rendering, even with higher quality, that resulted in sometimes bad evaluations. So I started looking at what is the essence of perception. And this quote from Aristotle, it's not to represent the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. And I think that as we moved at Ford from pure engineering or issue-based immersive assessments, and we started looking more at customer experience and trying to understand who Joe is that's driving our F-150 and what are the things that he's going to do when he's interacting with our vehicle. And to do that, we have to get at that essence of what you feel like when you're in your Ford and why you like it so much. And if you don't, why not? And we started looking more at the stories that our vehicles are going to tell while people are driving them or experiencing them or operating them or having fun, all of these things. And so we really needed to get at more of the core and of the emotion and get that emotive and scientific world together, just like we had brought so many disciplines in science and engineering together with the tech. So we had this level of quality in our vehicles, but if you look, the hood defender, it's almost unnaturally lit up because it should be in shadow and it's not. And then same thing, you can see some of the reflections are down the body side look good, but they're not exactly right. So what we did was we went from this to this. So this is really, there's no change to the geometric data, no change to the materials that are applied to the data. It's really just a rendering thing. So what we do is we do real-time ray tracing in 4K, and we show that to everybody that's in the room so that they can understand the vehicle and really get at the heart of what it looks like in the environments. And then we change environments, change time of day, and whatever the conditions are. And then we can do a whole bunch of engineering things, but it's much more profound in the way that we can understand our vehicles that way. And so now we have, if you look at that shadow, it's dark where it should be. You can see the side view mirror reflected in the body. And just the whole body side looks better. And when we were talking about like a millimeter or less than a mil tolerance down the body, you need that type of visual quality in order to really make those assessments. And so now this is the same, but looking inside the vehicle. So pre-computed reflections and shadows. And one of the things that we had heard was we have material mismatches that we really didn't have. And so this is a case where the door and the IP and the A-pillar that comes down between the window and the front glass, they all look somewhat different and not correct. And so with real-time ray tracing and getting the right illumination models, you can see how much of a difference that makes in how the vehicle looks. And so we're able to combine that when we need it to get a really high detailed, high quality look at the vehicle. And so now immersive reviews are part of our process for how we do product development. You cannot make a vehicle at Ford that has any level of change that a customer can see without coming in and getting immersed and looking at the things that the customer could see. And so it's trusted and it's valued for the disciplines that we use it for. And so I've been referring to this a lot, but this is like an understanding or like an overview. The immersive environment goes through all these different disciplines and allows us to drill down and understand each one, and then allows us to communicate effectively between each other. So if you're a manufacturing process engineer and you need to talk to an artist from the studio and ask the artist to change their surface, and you present them with an Excel spreadsheet of the reason why your manufacturing process can't hold the tolerances to make that surface, they just don't meet. But through the immersive environment, we've had so much success where people understand and can communicate effectively. And so now I'm just going to take you through really quickly some of these things that we've done. So we've used storytelling to talk about our vehicles and how they emote with customers, and I have a little video clip of this. So back in the DK2 days, we used it with Autodesk Vred and got immersed virtual to physical, so that was that adjustable vehicle that I was telling you about. The wonders of tech, right? We can change the mode, the surface rendering, and now we can look at surface continuity down the body and then flip back the mode again and then look at the vehicle in 4K with ray tracing and see what that looks like. Craftsmanship reviews are like our bread and butter. So somebody will come in, and this I think is kind of profound too. A person will come into the lab, wear a headset for 4 hours straight and love it. And the reason why that is because this is their one way of looking at any potential reality, and 400 of them in a 4-hour block of time, and then 450 of them in another 4-hour block of time. And they get a holistic view of the vehicle. They understand the status, they understand what issues are out there. They take pictures from the customer's perspective, and they can just pour over that vehicle and in short order, and then issue by issue they bubble up, and then pretty soon there's a room full of 50 people all trying to decide what to do about the issues they found. But the fact that they do that and they are like just fine with it, I mean, I would imagine it's pretty rare that anybody that would stay immersed for that long of a period of time and find it's good. So I think it's really nice that the capability is so useful that people are willing to do that, and they do it time and time again. And I think, so this is just a video that just shows some sectioning, but I'll tell you that our capability is so used that we're building another lab just down the hall from our current lab, and we've done I think we're on par for over 600 studies of individual, and many of those are done multiple times, but 600 studies this year alone. So the technology is like very well used, and you can see how complete the data is. So we put in everything, every nut and bolt, materialize everything, and really understand the full model. So this is a CAE, computer-aided engineering, and it's showing a defrost pattern. So you can get immersed. We have the defrost pattern on the windshield, and then you can just watch your front windscreen defrost. And what's so cool about that is it's really bringing in some of that subjective feeling that somebody gets, like when you're sitting there and you have that little window and you're watching it expand. And I guess there's not too many people here in California that have to worry about this like we do in Michigan. But this is something that is like a new use, because the way that defrosts, it might actually change like how good that is depending on your point of view, and how tall you are, and where your eye point is, and how you adjust your seat. So now we can look at those things in the proper context, and that's another use that we didn't know. So we're not just about VR, so we're doing some AR work too. So this is some work we've done with Microsoft HoloLens. And in this case, what we're doing is looking at a current fusion and then putting new data on top of it, so we can really iterate and change that data and really understand in the context of the real world a change to our vehicle. So we have lots of different use cases that we're going through with mixed reality approaches, and that's been really well received. This is a video that's just showing the body side of the vehicle morphing and changing in real time. And this is, I think I was the immersed person, and somebody just took my iPhone and took a video from the 4K screen. And I'm just looking at, that's like my eye view as I walk around and look at the car. But it actually takes our whole process, manufacturing process, morphs our geometry, and then shows me what it would look like if it was installed. And these are pretty extreme cases, so that you can very easily tell that most of these are really bad. But it makes the point that if we had those subtle ones, where maybe we're 5 sigma instead of 6 sigma, how would that look, and is it acceptable? If we have that high level of visual quality and we can sight down the body, you can see how useful that would be. And so what we're doing is we're applying design thinking in this human-centric approach to bring those together using immersion as that driver and that capability. And we're working to apply this capability for all the senses. So it's what you see, what you touch, what you hear. So we're looking at spatial audio, more interaction models, so that physically engaging thing. We're going out to where the people are instead of bringing, having everyone have to come to a lab. So we're, changing the paradigm a little bit. And this is the video I was telling you about. So this was an immersive experience. Let's see, I think I might have to hit, yeah. This is an immersive experience that is narrated. So this is immersive storytelling about the development of the Ford GT. And it takes you through the Le Mans victory 50 years ago, and it takes you through, Bill Ford is in it. That noise, that's we actually filmed the, yeah. Yeah, we filmed the revving sound of the GT for this video. But it takes you through, and it just explains this, this whole experience of developing the GT, making it that race car for the road, and how we really developed it around the driver in a driver-centric approach. And I don't think we have time to watch the whole thing, and I know everybody's hungry, so I won't do that to you, but it's pretty cool how but this whole thing, you could go in the passenger seat, you could go in the back seat, you could get out of the car, or, if people are looking around and they're really understanding what this vehicle is like. So it was a really cool experience. We took it out on the road a little bit, and we took it to Europe, and it was very well received and really kind of cool to have this story told to you, but have you be in control over what you're looking at and how you interact in that environment. And so I think that there's a few points I wanted to just leave you guys with, and one of them is we need to know how to learn and grow and evolve the technology. We have so much we can do with what we experience and how we experience it. And that GT thing I just showed you, that was kind of a linear, like a monologue that you could somewhat engage with. But there's so much we can do with branching narratives and having more interaction that is more really about how you normally interact with a vehicle, or how an engineer or a designer at Ford normally interacts with a vehicle, and really get rid of the levels of abstraction that we have right now, where we have these game controllers and these things that are kind of unnatural for how we would really interact with that vehicle. So we're working on more things to understand how we can bring more of the senses in and evolve and change the technology and update as the technology grows. So it's pretty cool. And one of the things I'll say is, Mark said it a few times, and I kept saying, yeah, we really need to work on a platform and a pipeline to properly share and communicate. And the further we get away from the way that we work at Ford, the worse it is, because it's just harder to come back and harder to integrate back in. And so I thought this is an oil pipeline, but I thought it was pretty indicative of like all the different things that Ford is doing and how they really kind of need to converge and come together. And even though that's a perspective vanishing point, you get the idea that we need a foundation, and we need to be able to get data when we need it, look at it in context, and then move on, instead of prepping and flipping normals and doing all this stuff that nobody wants to do. So that is really foundational, and it's one of the things that's like a non-starter to me, is if we have to go too many levels away from how we work, we're not adding value anymore. And so I think if I can leave you with that thought, I think that's a pretty good one. The other thing I wanted, this image, this just cracks me up. We had a going away party for one of our colleagues, and this was one of the images that somebody drew of him. And I don't know if you can read that. I don't see it, but magic is happening. That is, and it's an HMD that's unplugged. And so what's so great about that is there are so many people, it took me so many years to get people to like, come and look at this stuff, check out this tech, it's really great. And then we finally got some acceptance and everything was good. But things move on, and we're at this point now where people are willing to try. And the worst thing that we can do is when they try, give them a bad experience. And so I think that we need to have standards, we need to have quality checks, and it's kind of the Wild West in VR right now out there, and everyone that's got, it's like a Vive and a Rift, and they're all out there creating content, and it's kind of crazy, but I think there are a lot of learnings that another one of the panelists said that are out there, and then there's also like the practical matters of, we kind of really know what's right, and we just have to make sure we adhere to it at all costs. So I wanted to leave you with that, because I think we are in this magical time, and we have some opportunities to really grow the tech. We can work more with machine learning and understand, like, by what we're looking at, how to present that to somebody. There's so much we can do with slamming our world, and then understanding where we're at, and then presenting things to people in context. There's rendering in the cloud. I mean, there's just so much going on, but we have to be very judicious about how we apply those things. So, all right, well, thank you. That's it.